Hello everyone, my name is Taylor, and I welcome you to the first installment of the State of the Spiral, where I intend on keeping an update on the activities happening in the Spiral, most notably Wizard101, but if major updates should come, I will also cover Pirate. Today we are covering Day 1 and probably the whole first week of the 2022 test realm. I'm going to cover what was added and changed, the big problems, and what to do to prepare on Live Realm. Today was a rather rough start to test realm, as it was dropped a day later than expected and seems to have dropped prematurely even so. Please keep in mind that many of these changes are not necessarily detrimental of the final outcome, but unfortunately, some do pose a real concern to the health of the game. Let's get started in a few bright areas. For the more casual player, a new Social Kiosk has been added. This seems to be an attempt to amplify the experience of finding players and using random groups. We will have to see if this will have any real effect on the community culture when ported to Live Realm. For those interested in Beastmoon, they have added some new maps and a couple of new transformations. I really couldn't tell you much about this, but this seems like a relatively unoffensive update, and from what I've heard, they're fun transformations. Level locking was added, which in my opinion is a pretty cool mechanic for a number of reasons, but the idea is that you can lock your level, then any earned XP will become banked and saved for later. That being said, you can only level lock at level 50 and beyond, although I have heard this is currently bugged on test and some people have been able to lock their levels much earlier. While on the topic of general good things, the PvP arena has seen a nice overhaul to design, along with the addition of some new arenas. For some questionable things, membership rewards apparently are coming with this update, but the only proof of it seems to be in a poorly photoshopped image from the update notes, and as you will see from further contents of this update, is largely seen as an insult to injury. There's also a new housing dungeon coming, however, unless I'm missing something, it does not seem accessible at the moment. Can traps have arrived in the Spiral, but at a pretty hard cost. Theoretically, these things are super fun and cutesy to use while hanging out in the Spiral, and semi-useful in other positions while you're actually progressing through the game. However, currently can traps use energy. This of course means this is another thing to balance between gardening, fishing, and pets. This is not inherently bad, but when you take a look at the functionality of can traps and the current costs, this quickly seems to be a bad system. On top of all this comes a new type of chest which is unlocked by a 2 energy cost can trap. This sounds fine until you realize it requires 3 separate people to unlock. Worse, this is an integral part of another system. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about spell elements. Spell elements have been added to Wizard101 to upgrade spells to make them more powerful and dynamic. Some of these have been historically very pay to win, however, many were not notable enough to matter or simply ignored, while others, like the Maria spells, were relatively easy to obtain and some made interesting setups. For this update, we received a ton of new spell elements along with updates for many old ones. Pretty much all the rank 1 through 6 hits in the game now have a spell element system attached, with the exception of a bunch of hit-alls. While certainly these could have huge implication in both PvP and PvP, with a discussion of balancing on the table, the problem truly lies in obtaining these spell elements. Currently, as shown in the update notes, the only way to upgrade spell elements is to A. Get them by questing and beating bosses at the, please quote, appropriate levels, B. Using pet adventure powers, tell me if you actually know what those are, and C. Finding can trap chests to open with 3 people. At a first glance, this doesn't sound terrible. However, when they say appropriate level, they mean appropriate level. A max level wizard cannot simply obtain any of the rank 1 through 6 spell elements from the drops, period. Worse, it seems that none of the quests have been updated to include them as a drop. On top of all that, the rates seem rather awful, or at least questionable at best. After doing a few runs of a random boss in Crocotopia on a level 12 myth, I got a whopping 1 storm snake, 1 fire elf, 1 sunbird. The consistency of getting a drop wasn't terrible, but the numbers are pretty low. This wasn't a huge test, but I also shouldn't need to run a boss 100 times on the level 12 to get something good. To make matters worse, it seems they are fully intending on bringing the same systems that require hundreds of spell element per card to further worlds, with the same level exemptions. On top of all that, from the leaks, they're also coming to packs. There should be a pack per arc, it seems. So unless something changes, be prepared to make a new wizard and farm for a few hundred hours on a low-level world, or dish over a few $100s to Kingsisle. And before you ask, no, the other methods simply aren't good enough. Even running a set team, finding chests is always going to be slow and, due to energy, limited. And the few people who have used pet adventure powers can tell you it's a painfully slow process to even unlock them, and much more painful to use. As for the other large part of the update, the PvP side, there's many things that can be said. This is the introduction of 5th Age, PvP, and as such, huge changes are coming. A very big thing is changing in the way different levels of PvP function. Now there are 3 leagues of PvP. A level 50 PvP, a level 100, and a level 150. These being the no crit ladder, the no shad ladder, and the max ladder. They have suggested expanding this, but at the moment they are limiting us to that range. And that would be a range of 40 to 50, 90 to 100, and 140 to 150. A more intuitive elo system is being added. This is likely a great change for people who are new to PvP and who are veterans to PvP, so that they can face people of more similar skill sets. Also, in PvP, some preventative measures are being added to discourage from what has been labeled disruptive behavior, that being Q-dodging, disconnecting, and playing to a draw rather than to kill. You won't necessarily get in trouble for doing this a few times, but should you continually do this, they would put you in a timeout. In addition to the fundamental changes to Q and ELO, with the advent of the new age, all old PvP gear is retiring. That means your precious Glendeming's robe is both no longer obtainable, but also carries no stats. Worse, these gear pieces are no trade. Hopefully they will remove that restriction at least. To replace the current PvP gear, they are including craftable PvP-only versions of notable pay-to-win crown items, including the Motorist Overcoat at 150. They're also updating certain gear from Morganth, Dragonspire, Malastare, and Merciless sets. Notably, they are encouraging dual-school play. Upon logging into the game, you may see some of your newest gear look a little different. Merciless gear has been outright swapped, while Morganth and Dragonspire items have versions of both current and modern styles. They seem to intend on keeping this trend in future worlds' in-game gear. In my opinion, this change is odd, but not necessarily bad, but it is going to have huge effects on the PvE gear meta. In the final bit of news, it seems there have been some leaks relating to raids and possibly a level 100 elixir, however nothing can be confirmed. Separately, the hard mode that was brought to the attention in recent roundtables seems to have been pushed back till summer. I'll also mention that some of the notable boss items that many people assume that would be behind drops in hard mode should be coming inside a pack. Sad. So how will all these changes affect you? Gear-wise, Merciless is very different. The gear has moved pip value to the Athaman ring. The ring is quite powerful now. This is all while giving the rest of the gear a more spread stat sheet. The new amulets are quite powerful if you choose against using mastery amulets, and the new Merciless wands outright replace the supreme wands in almost every way except for shadow rating. If you're still looking for old stats, for the moment the Benevolent Gear, which is the tier below Merciless, has still retained its old stats, of course while being slightly worse than the current Merciless Gear. I will be experimenting on PvE setups as these updates roll out, so expect videos on that. I might also recommend farming the final fight of Lemuria, just in case they nerf the drop rates, however I don't see that incoming. If you're a PvP player, I highly recommend hopping online, maxing some spell elements, because there's a test shop in the commons so you can experience what it's like to actually have those things, not that you're actually going to get them, and you'll learn how those work. And if any player, PvP or PvE focused, please let Kingsisle know you want a fair ways to obtain spell elements and use can traps in a positive manner. A couple last things to note: bugs on Test Realm. Some models and gear icons are just a bit broken. The pet snack vendor for tickets is completely broken. Entering the crafting menu or pressing J will instantly crash your game, and the test server has seen some random drops in connection for many people, including myself. Other than that, if you've enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with a fellow wizhead. It really helps out. Thank you, and bye-bye.